Lloyd Begley. I'm the museum curator. Come on in.
Hello, welcome. My name is Gordon Barnhart, and I am the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. I'm sitting behind an early 20th century mahogany desk in the study at Government House in Regina. Saskatchewan has always been a place of big dreams and larger-than-life characters. These remarkable people have played out those dreams on a vast prairie canvas. Today, I invite you to enjoy a new television series with the unique name, Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan. The Architectural Heritage Society of Saskatchewan is the sponsor of this exciting series. Each year, I collaborate with the Society to present awards of excellence in architectural heritage. This series furthers the goals of the awards to stimulate interest in our history, to preserve meaningful places, and to educate our citizens. This series will take you to Saskatchewan cities, towns, villages, and the surrounding countryside. You will meet Saskatchewan people and hear their stories about the history, folklore, and built heritage of our beautiful province. I have always taken great interest in Saskatchewan's heritage, including this magnificent vice-regal house and our impressive legislative building. Join me today to discover the rich history of our province. You will experience a fascinating tapestry of stories woven together by Saskatchewan's people. I invite you to sit back, watch, and enjoy. And you know what? Gargoyles do live in Saskatchewan.
Welcome to this episode of Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan. It's the show that tells you all about what's happening in the world of architectural heritage. In this episode, you'll go to Meadow Lake. We'll take you out to an abandoned graveyard to hear the real stories behind the tombstones. And then you'll hear Joe Rolko, editor of the Heritage Quarterly, tell you all about the magazine and its many stories.
We're going to take a little drive out to the Cyprian Morin Cemetery, just to have a look at where it is. It's situated across from the golf course, close to Meadow Lake, and it was established there 100 years ago, in this year, 1909 to 2009.
Okay, this is St. Cyprian Cemetery, which was established 100 years ago in 1909. And there were 300 people buried here, and they found the graves of 226 who are marked and numbered. The early pioneers of our community, which was called Lac des Prairies, which is Meadow Lake. And it was named after Cyprian Morin, one of the early settlers, the first white settler who came from France to this area. We're looking east from the graveyard here to Meadow Lake. It was called Lac du Prairie in the early days, which meant in French Meadow Lake. And this is where the fur traders came up to trade their furs. They came up the Meadow River, from the Beaver River, and then from the Churchill River that runs into Hudson Bay. And the first school was directly behind us at the on the golf course, and it was built in the early days also, at the time when this graveyard was, around the time the graveyard was built. There were, as I said, 300 people buried here, but they found the graves of 226. That's the graveyard of James Edward Evans, the father of a well-known rancher in this area, Jimmy Evans, and grandfather to Leonard Evans. He was a member of the Northwest Mounted Police in the early days, and an early JP here in Meadow Lake, and a rancher. And this is the grave of Cyprian Morin, the first white settler in the area. He was born in France and came to Canada, where he was in Isle of Cross for many years, and then came to Meadow Lake, and has many descendants here in the Meadow Lake area. And he was quite a man, apparently. In those days, he was held in very high regard. Well, everyone. We're looking at a grave here, and whoever marked it with a good luck horseshoe put the shoe upside down, so this poor soul's good luck is running out. This is the grave of the first man buried in this graveyard. William de Leron was born in 1870. He married Agnes Morin, the daughter of Cyprian Morin. They had 7 children: Josh de Leron, George, that famous musician, Julia Centergrate, Elsie Morin, Marie Rose Boyer, Clara Springstead, and Melvina Fiddler. They are all deceased except Julia Centergrate. Well, she's deceased now too. She lived in Meadow Lake. William died from burns to his body on October 24th, 1909. He was 39 years old. What happened really with William, they found him in the morning. He was face down in the fire. There was a party, and the story goes that they don't know how he passed away, but he was face down in the fire in the morning. That's how he received the burns to his body. And some of the famous old-timers that were at that party was none other than the notorious old pioneer Jack Murray, who at one time caught a guy on my brother's land on Bear Creek stealing a weasel out of his trap, and he made him eat it. And the guy willingly ate the weasel. Well, thanks for listening to us. I hope it's historically enlightening to some of the people. It's surprising that how many people around Meadow Lake and the area have never been to this graveyard or know that it even exists.
I became a volunteer with the Saskatchewan Architectural Heritage Society in 2003. The fellow that was the executive director of the society then, Al Rossiker, asked me to help with the Lieutenant Governor's Architectural Heritage Awards of Excellence. I knew nothing about that, and he asked me to help with the media relations for the event with Her Honor Dr. Linda Haverstock at that time. And I became very interested in heritage at that point, because they were honoring architects, buildings, and contractors and owners who had been involved in redeveloping projects in the province. The awards are adjudicated each year by a committee of the Architectural Heritage Society of Saskatchewan, and the patron of the awards is the Lieutenant Governor. So after that, I got involved with the society, and then we worked together and collaborated on a book for 2005 called Building Our Future, People's Architectural Heritage of Saskatchewan. That book we won some critical acclaim for, and then I just stayed on 2 years ago with the Society and became the editor of Heritage Quarterly Saskatchewan, which is a publication that's been produced by the Society for 21 consecutive years. And in it, basically helps all the Society members connect across the province, as well as provide some real tangible examples of people helping communities grow through built heritage. The Society's major event each year is the awarding of the Architectural Heritage of Excellence Awards. We feature one of the buildings on the cover of the magazine. In this case, this is the church in Wolseley. And inside then we do full color layout of all of the winners. We do a full-length citation explaining why a particular project has earned an award and it's being bestowed on them. We try and stay away from talking about winners and losers because we think that any work that's done to preserve our built heritage in Saskatchewan is a winner. One of the things about the Awards of Excellence is that we want to make sure that we have all the different categories are covered each year, so that people know that in future years, if they're working on a project in the province where they're either working on the exterior restoration of a building or interior, or adapting something for reuse, that there are different categories. There is new categories that have come up in the last few years. Sympathetic new construction is now something that we think will take root in the province, if you pardon the pun, where when they go to construct new buildings, what they'll do is we'll try and blend the design and the outside of the building to match the structures that are there. A classic example of that is on the University of Saskatchewan campus, where they have had numerous buildings built in the college Gothic style. The brick is brand new, but it looks like it's been there for over 100 years. This year, in 2009, the Royal Bank Building was a recipient in Moose Jaw of the Heritage Award as an example of adaptive reuse. Chow McLeod, a law firm in Moose Jaw, has adapted it for their offices, and we recognize that, as well as the contractor. It's important for the Society to bring together the entire group and be recognized. So not only the building owner and the tenant, but the architect and any of the designers that are involved in it, so that they earn recognition as well. You'll see from other examples in the magazine that we are truly a province-wide organization. So you talk about this year we talked about we recognize projects as far away as the RM 464 near Parkside, the first elevator on the prairies that is still standing and has been rehabilitated, the Lake of the Woods grain elevator near Fleming, and so on. Stories in the magazine also, we try to get as much regional representation as possible, so that we don't have stories just from Regina or just Saskatoon, because it is a provincial magazine and it is a provincial organization. And of course, because we've gone to full color, it really has a big impact when you start looking at the pictures and what goes on. An example of the type of contribution that we're looking for is the story that we ran about how the community of Radville saved their railway station. It was a contribution from the people of Radville. It was written by one of the women that was involved in the project from day one. We encourage people across the province and organizations who have spent time, money, and effort to preserve built heritage to share their stories by sending it into the magazine, and we'll publish it. A regular feature that we have in the magazine is a column that is written by Frank Korvenmaker, and he writes a column called Brick by Brick, where he sends us an example of brick that has been used in Saskatchewan or has come from a plant in Saskatchewan, and then has a photograph and all the specifications of the brick, where it's been used, and it's a very interesting feature because one of the things about Saskatchewan's past is that there were just dozens of brick plants across the province. It's a very popular feature, and people turn to it on a regular basis. Another thing about the magazine is that if you're an organization that is involved in heritage or wondering if you've done some work, whether you could get some assistance from us. We have a regular piece in the magazine which talks about the different grants that we have for programs, for developing a site consultation report, if you're holding a meeting or a forum like that's going to be going on in Prince Albert. Some groups have had little brochures done or promotional items, so they've come to the society as well. And so we have one page dedicated to money available to help heritage happen in your community. And that's been sort of our unofficial slogan for the last 2 years, is that our goal is we want to help heritage happen across Saskatchewan. And the magazine helps to illustrate that by not only doing our own stories, by getting contributions of people that have done work. And in this particular edition, you can see that this beautiful picture here is of the restored upstairs of one of the original Eaton's homes. One of the things that is really interesting about rural Saskatchewan is that you can still find what was called an Eaton's home, where in years gone by, you could actually order out of the Eaton's catalog a home, and it would be delivered to you. But the only problem was that it was the actual pieces of wood came, and you had to cut it, you had to saw it into specifications, you had to nail it by their plans. So it wasn't prefab, but you can actually buy a home, and it's an architectural style. And we featured the home that Bernie Cruikshank and her husband renovated, and had some beautiful pictures in there. And we've got some interesting feedback from readers who say that they remember the Eaton's homes concept, and then we've had others who've come back to us and said, gee, we didn't even know that you could order Eaton's homes from an Eaton's catalog. And then there are younger people who didn't even know who Eaton's were, because they were a large Canadian department store chain that, as we now know, went out of business more than 10 years ago. We were approached more than a year ago by a young couple in Regina who were renovating the former Anson House. Now, the Anson House was the home for the Archbishop for the Qu'Appelle Anglican Diocese, very well-known structure. Now, Nicole Robertson and Mike Templeton took it upon themselves that they were going to renovate and refurbish this house, and so we decided to do a series on them and follow through. This is one of the original stories, and you can see from the pictures here that the interior of the house was in not great shape. They ended up rebuilding all of it from the inside out, and we were with them along the way. They were gracious enough to send us pictures of the work in progress, and then keeping us up to speed about where they were and getting ready to move in. There are two things that are significant about this story. One was that Anson House is being renovated for its original purpose, which is a home. But the thing that struck us the most was that this was a young couple that wanted to preserve the heritage. So heritage is not just about pretty old buildings. Heritage is about community value and about passing on what we value as a community from one generation to another. And so what Nicole Robertson and Mike Templeton were doing with Anson House is a perfect example of why we're working to preserve and promote built heritage in Saskatchewan. From time to time, we have members who want to do some scholarly or academic work. We encourage that, but we are not a publication that wants to just run that type of work, because we try and write the stories and show real success. But it's really nice to see when the people who have got the